Hey everybody, this is Mark Malloy with Emerging Civil War, and I'm here with Phill Greenwalt, who actually just came up from Florida to present at the annual Symposium here at Stevenson Ridge, where he talked about some forgotten battles here. That's the theme of this year's Symposium. And tell me, Phill, a little bit about Florida during the Civil War. Most of us don't associate Florida with the Civil War, but tell me a little bit about it.
Sure. If we brought in the theme of forgotten battles of the Civil War to forgotten states, it would be Florida. Florida is not recognized as one of the big players in the Confederacy. They are the third state to secede from the United States, though, on January 10th of 1861. They give 15,000 soldiers to the war effort, which doesn't sound like much, but it's probably about somewhere around 30% of the white male population of the state. By 1864, though, they are largely forgotten, as most of their sons are fighting in the Army of Tennessee or the Army of Northern Virginia. But there is an incursion in early '64 to try to reconstitute the state in wake or before the 1864 presidential election, and that brings Union attention back to Florida for a short period of time.
Yeah, so the Union comes down and try to bring Florida back into the Union, and a battle happens, the Battle of Ulusty, or the Battle of Ocean Pond, as the Confederates called it. You gave a presentation about this battle. Can you tell us a little bit about the Battle of Ulusty?
Exactly. It's a battle that should never happen, according to the Union Department Commander Quincy Gilmore. Truman Seymour is in charge of forces in East Florida. He's told to garrison Jacksonville. He has a few objectives to attain, and he kind of changes his mind, and he waffles from not having enough troops to thinking he's only maybe facing militia or acting aggressively, so he marches out from Jacksonville. The battle happens about 2 miles in front of where the Confederates think it's going to happen. They've actually built entrenchments between Ulusty, which is a station on the railroad, and Lake City. Both commanders, Joseph Finnegan in charge of Confederate forces, Truman Seymour, do not even reach the field of battle. It is a stand-up fight for a few hours in the afternoon of February 20th, 1864. And for the amount of men involved, it has tremendous casualties. Over 30% for the Union, close to 20% of the Confederates fall. One of the big regiments that is known, not so much for battle in Florida, but at the Battery Wagner, which is the basis of the movie Glory, is the 54th Massachusetts. But in actually the 8th U.S. Colored Troops there, and they suffer over 300 casualties. And it's their first baptism of fire, and they'll actually suffer the third most casualties of any regiment of colored troops in the entire Civil War when the fighting ends in 1865. So the Battle of Ulusty is important because it keeps the Suwannee River Bridge with the railroad supplies moving north to Confederate armies farther afield. It also ruins any attempt for the Union to march across the state and sever East and West Florida, or potentially take over the Confederate state capital in Tallahassee.
Interesting. Now, because this has become a forgotten battle or forgotten state, why do you think that Florida has been forgotten and this particular significant battle has been forgotten over the years? And what today can people see if they were to go visit Ulusty?
Certainly. Of course, the state of Florida, tourism, if you think of Florida, it's the beaches or Disney World. So Civil War history kind of folds on the wayside, but there is a state battlefield park there. There's also a bigger national forest nearby, so there's camping and hiking trails. There is an effort afoot to build a bigger interpretive visitor center than the small one that is currently there. There are some Civil War markers. There are some other small little battlefield sites around Jacksonville as well, including a Camp Milton that shows some of the recruitment efforts and how they mustered in Confederate soldiers in '61. But I think the large reason it's forgotten is that there's so much else to do in Florida. It's so far afield from the main killing fields in Tennessee, Georgia, and Virginia. And also, too, it happens in that right on the precursor of the more devastating Overland Campaign, or the March to Atlanta, and eventually the March to the Sea. So afterwards, both sides kind of retract. The North, of course, doesn't want to remember it. It's a failed effort. The Confederate forces are moved back into the Carolinas, the 2 brigades of Georgians. What's left of Florida soldiers that are in infantry are caught up to resupply the Army of Northern Virginia. So both sides kind of quickly leave the area, and being in the middle of North Florida, it is largely ignored.
Yeah, as somebody who's actually traveled to Ulusty to reenact the annual reenactment, in February back in 2014. One of the few trips I've taken to Florida and not gone to the beach, but gone to the swamps in central North Florida. But there you have it. Well, thank you, Phill. I think that's really interesting, and hopefully everybody gets a chance to learn more about these forgotten battles.